What's going on social media? Let's have a talk of how to get a house. Basic. So in this video, I'm only gonna go about the basic of how to get a house, and there's different ways you can get a house. But
For the first-time home buyer, we've always said if you don't want to do the full 20% down, then 5% down, 10% down, something like that's okay, but you're going to take on that.
here's the thing. I bought a couple of houses. I deal with a bunch of people who want to buy houses, and there's a bunch of things that people do not understand. And I'm just want to go to the basics so that everyone who wants a house can get a house. And what do you need to know? So in this video, I'll explain how to buy a house, simplify the complex process of purchasing a home just by using simple examples. And there's only three ways you can get a house. The option,
Everybody should seriously think about getting a real estate license. Because if you wanted to buy a property for yourself, 3% is your commission. So if you qualify for an FHA mortgage, it's 3.5% down. If you're a real estate agent and you 3% commission, you only got to put 0.5% down. Am I right?
for buying a home. You can buy a home outright if you have the money and you're rich enough. But not a lot of people have all that cash to buy a house outright. Two, you can inherit a house. Your parents, your uncle, your grandpa, someone left you a house and you inherit. Congratulations, you got a house. And lastly, is get a loan from a bank known as a mortgage.
What's a mortgage? A mortgage is a loan against a house. So if you're buying a house, even if you're buying it to live in, let's say you want to buy a house and it's £300,000 house. Most people don't have £300,000 cash. So what they do is they put down a deposit of 10, 20, 30%, and then the rest they'll take out as a loan.
Now, let's understand a mortgage. So those are the three ways you can get a house. There's really no other ways. You inherit it, you buy it out in full, or you get a loan to buy a house, which is called a mortgage. Now, you need to understand a mortgage. A mortgage is a loan from a bank to buy a house. Typically, you pay back over 15 to 30 years. Now, here's the thing you need to understand with these terms. Maybe they'll come out with a 50-year term. Maybe they won't. Maybe they'll get rid of the 30-year term. This all depends on your credit and what you can afford. So, which mortgage loan or what's the term you should get? It all depends on your situation. Dave Ramsey say 15 years. I say 30 years. As long as you can afford a house and get something in a reasonable price range. Now, what's the requirements for you to get a loan? So the bank requirement is to qualify for a mortgage. You need a stable job. You need a good credit score, and you need a deposit. The deposit is usually between 0 to 20% of the total loan. Better credit score you have, less you have to put down. That's the general rule. Now, there is something called the Fannie Mae loan, the government assistant loans. There's all different type of loans, and this is where you have to do due diligence on what loans you want to get. So, first thing you have to do before you want to start shopping for a house, you have to get a pre-approval. Once you're approved, you are pre-approved to buy a house, and that will based off your situation. I recommend you put 20% down, a 30-year fixed rate, but there's all different types of loans. There is a 30-year fixed and a 30-year variable. And the only difference is a fixed, you get a set amount you pay every month on the interest, and variable, it could be good or bad depending on what the situation is. It could go up or it could go down. Going down would be good for you. Going up is not good for you. So that's the basic of what a mortgage is. Now, whenever you get your mortgage, you need to find a house that you want to buy. Now, here's the thing. You can find cheap houses in bad areas. You can buy ugly houses in nice areas, and that will change the price. Or you can find a perfect one that's a nice house in a perfect area, but those come with the premium cost. So with the cost determined by the area you purchase in and how the house is. So if you want to live in a nice neighborhood and you buy the smallest house, well, you're going to be paying more for square footage for that house than you would in a bad area for a nicer house. That's just how it works. Now, after you find a suitable house, you make an offer. Now, here's the thing. In a certain situation, they might try to do a bidding war or auction held, and the winner is the highest bidder. So you can get into a situation where they say, oh, we have 20 people interested in this house. So we're just going to do a bidding war, and whoever pays the highest will get it. Now, it doesn't always work like that, but it does happen. Now, that I told you that, in most cases, an offer is simply accepted or declined by the seller. And that's, if no one's bidding on it, you make an offer on a $250,000 house for $220,000. They say, I accept. Now you got a house. Upon accepting, and you sign the paperwork and receive the keys. That is the basic of how to buy a house. Now, there's something also called blind auction, where you get multiple people want to buy a house and people just throw how much they're willing to offer. Let's say the house is offered $250,000. The realtor will come to you and say, hey, we have multiple offers, so give us your best offer. So you put $250,000, but someone, let's say from California, comes in, say, we'll buy the house, sight unseen, $300,000 cash. And then someone else comes in and say, look, we'll give you $350,000, but we're gonna need to do a mortgage. And that's a situation where the seller will have to decide which one's the best for them. Sometimes they don't always take the higher offer. Sometimes they just like the easy transition. They close in 1 or 2 days and get the cash. It all depends on the person and situation. Now, let's talk about the interest rate that you're going to pay on that mortgage, because that's something else you need to know. You'll pay interest on the borrow amount of money, which is the
interest rates. So when you borrow money, interest rate is like the rent you pay for borrowing that cash. Borrow 100, and depending on the rate, you might have to pay back 110. But flip it around, if you're saving money in a bank, it's like the bank is paying you rent to hold your cash. Now, who decides these rates? Central banks. When they raise rates, borrowing costs go up, making it harder to buy stuff.
Cost of borrowing money. Everyone's going to have to pay interest rate. You could pay 6%, 7%, 3%, counting on your term limit. So let's say you have a 5-year term for your mortgage. Well, you're going to pay cheaper interest than you will on a 30-year fix. So if they're both fixed, lower the shorter amount of time, lower interest you'll pay. And then a fixed interest rate, like I said, it stays the same throughout the loan. Nothing happens. You just pay a set 6% interest rate throughout the loan. Now, there's also adjustable interest rate. Will fluctuate over time, and depending on what your contract states, it could be a 5-year balloon where you pay first 5 years, you pay a 6%. Then after that is whatever the market does, and I don't recommend that. But hey, this is your loan, so you need to figure out what's best for you. I've seen people do a 5-year fixed or adjustable loan. It's because they're planning on to pay it off early, and they get a 2%. So you can get lower on adjustable, but just know if you don't pay it off in that 5 years, it can adjust. And lastly, a lower interest rate is offered to borrowers who deem more trustworthy. What does that mean? You have good credit score, and more money you put down, lower the interest rate they're going to give you. That's just how it works. The bank's going to trust someone who wants to buy a $600,000 house. They said, I got 50% down and I want to do 30-year fixed. They're more likely going to give them the best rate they can get to win that customer. So, because that's a prime customer. Let's say they have 700 credit score, they make 300,000, and they put $300,000 on a $600,000 house. They're going to want to win that customer. So they're going to try giving the lowest interest rate and the best possible solution. Now, let's talk about some of the fees that you're going to have to understand when involving buying a house. Not just the down payment you have to worry about. Not just the interest rate you have to worry about. You also have to worry about the closing fees.
What are closing costs when buying or selling a home? Let's explain. On the buy side, application fee, origination fee, appraisal fee, title insurance, homeowner's insurance, all factor into your buyer side closing costs. On the sell side, you have your broker's fees, attorney's fees, tax stamps to the state of Rhode Island, property taxes that are in arrears, transfer taxes, or in the case of condos, you're gonna have those association fees and a resale certificate.
And here's are some of the fees you're going to have to pay. Application fee to process your mortgage application. This depends on what state you're in. Appraisal fee. This also depends on what state you're in, how much it costs, and that is to assess the house value. Inspection fee to check the issues like termites. And this also depends how big the house is, how much it costs. Original fees. That means the bank fee for making the loan. That means they're going to charge you, hey, we're going to offer you this money, but we're going to charge you a fee for us to put this package together for you. And this is how much it's going to cost. Depending on what state you're in, it could change. Credit report fees. This is to check your credit score. Yes, you see all these fees. These are fees that keep piling up. Title and search fees to ensure that there are no previous owners have claim on the house. And these are all very important to have. Title and insurance fee. That means to protect you against claim on your house. Lawyer fees. You can waiver the lawyer, but most time I recommend you go to the lawyer so you make sure all the documents are correct. And this is to contract a legal aspect side. Recording fees. This means you register your deed in your name with the county and the government so they know that you own it. Now, just because you're recording the fees, this is where you have to pay the transfer tax, the government taxes on property transfer. That depends on your county, what area you're in, and it can vary. So there's a lot of fees that comes with this. It could cost you a few thousand to a few hundreds of thousands, depending on how much your cost of your house is. Mortgage insurance and or PMI. Now, this is required if you do not put 20% down. If you don't have 20% of the property paid off whenever you purchase the house, you have to get PMI to protect the bank. And lastly, and the final fee is closing costs. Now, final fee to pay to get the keys. That's almost all the fees you're going to have to know. Now, let's talk about lastly, like and subscribe to my videos. I really enjoy doing this and really help with the algorithm. Let's talk about the pros of mortgages and cons about mortgages. So pros on mortgages allows access to home ownership without paying cash up front. Pretty simple. You can apply with a partner or a co-borrower. You can get a group of people together and buy a house together. I don't recommend it because there's a lot of issues, but people do that. They get 4 or 5 people together. They all pitch in 20, 30,000 on a house and they do a flip together. You can do stuff like that. The other pro you can is renting out a room can help with the payment. So whenever you get a mortgage, you can rent out the rooms and sublet it because you don't have a contract. It's your house. You can do what you want with it and help pay it off. And then other pro is on-time payment improve your credit score. And lastly, houses generally increase in value over time, allowing for potential profit if you're gonna sell later. Which means, let's say you buy 5-bedroom, 4-bath house for you and your family. All your kids move out. You bought the house for $500,000. Whenever you decide to move out, it costs $1.5 million. Now, some people run into this situation because the area blew up, but this is a reality. Well, according to the prophet, if you're married, you don't have to pay taxes on $500,000, and then you can walk away with a good profit. So you probably walk away with $1 million, and after you buy your house of, let's say, $400,000, you still walk away with about $1 million or $900,000 on profit. And this is the pros of owning a house. Now, con of owning a mortgage. It's a long-term debt. At the end of the day, it's debt that you have to pay. The other issue is adjustable interest rate can lead to increase in payments. And that's just how it works when you do adjustable interest rate. And the other cons, often paying more for original price of the house due to interest. So you're paying more than the value of the house over time due to the cost of you borrowing the money. And that's just how it works. And lastly, failure to make payment can result in the bank repossessing your house, and doesn't mean you will get the value of the house when they repossess it. They're gonna put it on auction. Let's say you owe $300,000 and they auction it off. You get paid $200,000 for on the auction. Well, you're still on the hook for the other $100,000 to the bank. So hopefully that helps you understand. Like and subscribe to my video, and that's all I got for you.